Hello, ladies. Welcome to the Foundations Call, our first one. I am going to give you a little bit of history about me, and then we're going to dive into our subject a little bit, and we have time for questions. That's kind of planned into this. And so I really want you to feel like you can ask anything. It doesn't matter what it is. And do not let the enemy make you think it's a dumb question, because there is no dumb question, because we all need to learn. There are things I'm going to learn doing this, things I'm going to learn studying, and that I'm really excited about. Some of the questions I've already received have been really awesome, and I'm looking forward to diving into those subjects a lot deeper. And I'm going to just give you kind of the foundation of who I am and what perspective I'm coming from, so that when you ask your questions and I go, you know what, I really don't know, because I will tell you if I don't know. And whenever I say, I don't really know, I'm going to get some opinions from people who do know. Okay. So I'm learning the same. So I just appreciate everybody and your willingness to participate and be here. My name is Misty Harbor. I have been walking this walk for about 12 years now. And I want to give you kind of a history of who I am and my walk, so that you know who labors among you, because I feel that that's important, that I'm not just some stranger coming into your house and going, you should listen to me, because I want you to question everything I say. I want you to research everything that I say. And if you have a different opinion, I want you to come back and tell me, because we're all learning together and we all have things that we can learn. Absolutely. We all have things we can learn. So I am a mom. I have one son who just turned 24 at the beginning of this month. His due date was actually today. So he was 2 weeks early, and he is not walking in the way. His name is Joel Lurch. If you guys would pray for him, I would appreciate that. He has an understanding, and I know it's in there. We just gotta get him past the hump. So I met who we know as Jesus back in 1990, and I fell in love with him. I came from an abusive background, and I absolutely fell in love with who he was and how he loved me. So I have always desired to walk in his ways, to have a balance in things. Most of you know this, but when you start learning something, there's this pendulum swing. So it goes over here to one side, and then you go, oh no, that's completely wrong. And you go over here to this side, and then you're able to finally kind of come into a balance and see, okay, this is the way for me. And I'm not going to tell you that the way I'm walking is the way you should walk, because I don't believe that. I believe that we all have our own things that we need to search out with him, and to understand according to his spirit and according to our own lives and the people that are around us. Something I might do could be completely offensive to someone that you love, that you want to witness to. So I want you to know, I don't believe you would be here if you didn't already search out the scripture. But I'd want to encourage you to continue. Always, always, always continue. I went to a church. I was in the International Pentecostal Holiness Church, which is not the one that requires you to wear long sleeves, no jewelry, and never cut your hair. That is not the one I was in. It was a more, I don't know the word I want to use here. It was not like that. It was not that conservative. How about that? The greatest thing that I learned in that congregation had to be balance. The balance of, there's always a balance. The other thing that I learned that was great there was leadership. And I am so thankful that I was placed in that place because of that teaching, because of that understanding. I have had success in the world, in my career and things, simply because of what I learned at that congregation. And I'm thankful for that. And I do not despise my beginnings. Despite all the things that we've learned that were lies that we were taught, I do not despise my beginnings. I'm thankful for them, because I wouldn't be where I am right now without them. I've had encounters with people who, one person in particular who was walking this walk, and the next thing I know, he's denying Yeshua. And I was like, what is happening right now? And he's like, oh, I'm trying to figure this cat out. And I'm like, oh, I don't think you could have known him. You couldn't have known him if you are trying to figure him out. So that is a pitfall in this walk that I've seen. We had an entire congregation in my city that converted to Orthodox Judaism, and it was a real travesty. And their congregation fell apart, and it's been quite the ordeal. I started going to the congregation that I'm in 2000. Nope. Yes, 2009. And I went and saw Eddie Chumney speak at a Baptist church here in town. And I took 27 pages of notes, and I was blown away. Like they say, it's like that drinking water from a fire hydrant. I could not believe what all I was learning and what I was hearing, and I was overwhelmed. And I took it back to my congregation and spoke with the co-pastor, her name is Sandy, and said, listen, this is what I'm looking into. And she said, oh, that's too much legalism. Well, they're my leaders. I didn't quite have the firm foundation I needed to walk in it yet. So I just said, Father, I'm going to sit this on a shelf. I'm going to put it right here. And when you're ready, whatever that piece is that I'm missing, when you show it to me, I'm going to see it. And I'm looking forward to it because I know it's there. I just don't know what it is. So it wasn't a month later, someone posted a video from 119 Ministries called The Lost Sheep, and that was the piece I was missing. It just blew me away, and I repented, and I cried, and I prayed, and I was just totally blown away. And I went back to my congregation, and basically I was like, I can't stay here if you guys aren't going to observe Shabbat. They were like, what are you talking about? What are you listening to? What have you been learning? And so I kind of gave them some websites that I had been to, and teshuvaministries.net was one of the best. They have a little start here tab that has a lot of videos in it. And that was on a Monday night. The next Sunday, they're like, we need to talk to you after service. And I'm like, oh, great. Here we go. I'm going to get the left foot of fellowship. And she said, we had our first Shabbat yesterday, and it was amazing. And I was like, what? And so within 3 weeks, they changed the congregation. We lost 2/3 of the people, because when you turn a big ship, it's a hard process. And when you do it quick, you are going to lose some people. So it was a challenge, but it was a great, great experience. And so we've been learning a lot, a whole lot. I'm going to tell you that, again, I want you to do your own research, but I'm going to tell you that the names that I prefer to use for the Father, I will say the Father, I'll say the Holy One, I will say Yehovah. And for Yeshua, I like Yeshua. Sometimes I'll say Jesus, because I love Charlie's statement about he doesn't have an identity crisis. I think that's wonderful. So I may do that. But today, what I want to talk to you about today is, what do we call ourselves? I think this is kind of a foundational, I don't know what to say when somebody says, oh, so you're a Jew? It's I get it a lot. I have a friend who was raised in a home where his mother was Catholic and his father was Jewish, and his family is actually full of rabbis. And we had a conversation on the phone one day, and he said, so you're a Jew now? And I was like, no. And he said, oh, so you're a Christian? I said, no. And he said, you have to be one. I said, no, I don't. And so it's been a challenge to keep people understanding. And so I want to talk about some of the things that we have been taught, and things that we may have called ourselves that have caused issues. One of the things, I'm going to start with Hebrew roots, because that seems to be the most common. Hebrew roots has gotten a really bad name. And it's unfortunate because I do believe that we are studying the Hebrew roots of our faith and how to walk that out. But unfortunately, because of some fringe areas in this walk and people who are Torah Nazis, for lack of a better word, we have gotten a really bad reputation. In the Messianic community, when they look at us, they don't understand us. If they had truly been raised Jewish and they came to an understanding of Messiah, they don't understand us. Orthodox Jews believe that we can only follow the Noahide laws. I wanted to look at those. Let me share my screen with you right quick. Okay, can you see that? So I looked this up on Chabad.org because as I was studying this out, I was like, well, I don't even know what the Noahide laws are. So as I studied it out, I was like, well, I need to find out what this means. So these are the 7 laws that Orthodox Judaism believes that we as Goyim should follow. Now, I don't agree with it, obviously, but it is a good foundation, and they consider it a foundational thing of kind of what the people who aren't Jews should follow to have a good life. Okay. So number 1, do not profane God's oneness in any way, which we understand this. Do not curse your creator. Do not murder. Do not eat a limb of a living animal. Do not steal, harness and channel the human libido, and establish courts of law and ensure justice in our world. So those are the 7 things that the Orthodox Jews believe that we should follow. Now, I don't know if you know this, but Judaism is just as factioned as Christianity is. There are so many different things. My friend that I was telling you about earlier, he was in a congregation in our city that's considered Reformed, and their rabbi was a woman, and she supported abortion. And it blew my mind. I didn't understand how they could have such a value for life. I mean, we even saw that on the 7 Noahide laws, how they could have such a value for life and them be okay with that. I had a difficult time understanding that. But just, you have to be aware that there are just as many factions in Judaism as there were in Christianity. And so it is a challenge to know who to turn to, who to listen to. You really have to be dependent on the Spirit, because without the Spirit, you can't really understand the instructions anyway. So it's really important that you have the Spirit and ask the Spirit to help you. That's what they're there for. That's what the Spirit is there for. The Spirit is our helper, to come along beside us, to gird us up, and to help us in this learning situation that we're in, because we're learning every day. It's not a one-time thing, and it's not a, oh, I've got it. I mean, you guys know it does not happen like that. So the other term that I've heard used is calling ourselves Messianic. I don't agree with that personally, because Messianic is really someone who was brought up Jewish and came to know Yeshua as Messiah. So I don't consider myself Messianic. One of the others is Torah observant. And one of the things about that word is that, do we have that down? I mean, do we really observe Torah every single piece of it? I mean, that's kind of that's kind of impossible to do at this point in time, especially. So the one that I kind of like is Torah pursuant, because I'm pursuing that life. I want to pursue his ways, his instructions, and follow them to the best of my ability. And when I do that, Brenda, was it Simi who made the statement about don't be hysterical, be historical?
It was either Simi or it was Gail. Gail, was that you? It sounds like something Gail would say. And by the way, by the way, I
It
really
wasn't
agree.
me.
It wasn't you?
It wasn't you. It must have been
No.
Simi.
You're off the hook then. It must have been Simi. I really like that though. I
That's
like
right.
your explanation of Torah pursuant. I really like that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mhm.
So I took that when that statement was made. I believe it was Simi who said it. Don't be hysterical. Be historical. Well, when I heard that, what I heard was we are to be living epistles. We are to be able to be read by men. So if we're going to do that, then we are His Torah cul. So we have to be, we need to be, let me put it that way. We're never going to be perfect. We're never going to have all our emotions under control and in line all the time, but we need to be examples. We need to be that witness to people. So instead of being hysterical and losing our minds over things and causing factions, causing division, bringing dissension into whatever place you're in, whatever that is. We talked about that on the Torah portion on Friday. It's up to you to be His Torah kul, one that can be read of men so that they are drawn to Him. We are supposed to be provoking Judah to jealousy. And what has happened with Hebrew roots, that term specifically, is Hebrew roots people have come in and tried to tell the Jews, you're doing it all wrong. Okay, they're not going to take that very well. And so we don't want to do that. I don't agree personally with everything that the Jews do. I don't. And I asked the Father to help me to be understanding. But my biggest thing was when I was in the church, in the Christian church, I was not following tradition then either. And so I didn't want to go from discovering the roots of my faith into more tradition. And so there are some things that are valuable and precious about the things that the Jewish people do. And I am learning more and more about that. And so if you do those things and you're a part of those things, keep it up. Be a part of it. Enjoy it. Let it enrich your life. Because if He's led you to it, there's a reason. There's something you're going to learn from it, or there's going to be a witness that you're going to be for someone else through that. So I'm going to talk a little bit about how we got here. How did we get to the place where we're like, oh, I really should be studying the roots of my faith and doing what Yeshua did? How did we get here? Well, I believe it's prophetic, absolutely prophetic. And we're going to read first, Jeremiah 16:19. Most of you are going to be very familiar with this scripture. It is a famous one in this walk. And I read out of the Scriptures 2009 version, in case you wonder what I'm reading and why I'm saying what I'm saying. Okay, Jeremiah 16:19 says, O Yehovah, my strength and my stronghold and my refuge, in the day of distress, the nations shall come to you from the ends of the earth and say, our fathers have inherited only falsehood, futility, and there is no value in them. That is a big one. We inherited a lot of lies. And it was because it was passed down generation to generation. It was part of that seminary teaching, that a lot of pastors received. And it's just passed down and passed down and passed down rather than an understanding. So that's a big one. Let's read Isaiah 60, 1-7. The thing about this Bible is it's not in the same order as traditional Bibles. It's in the order of the chronological order. So I have these little tabs on it. Can you see that? Yeah, I have these little tabs on there and they help me some, but it's still not in order. So I still have trouble sometimes. Okay, Isaiah 60 verses 1-7. Arise, shine, for your light has come, and the esteem of Jehovah has risen upon you. For look, darkness covers the earth, and thick darkness the peoples. But Jehovah arises over you, and his esteem is seen upon you. And the nations shall come to your light, and sovereigns to the brightness of your rising. Lift up your eyes all around and see, all of them have gathered. They have come to you. Your sons from afar and your daughters are supported on the side. Then you shall see and be bright, and your heart shall throb and swell, for the wealth of the sea is turned to you. The richness of the nations come to you. A stream of camels cover your land, the dromedaries of Midian and Ephah. All those from Sheba come, bearing gold and incense and proclaiming the praises of Jehovah. He's talking about Israel there. And he's talking about the beauty of Israel and our understanding and coming into this understanding of the way is really partial fulfillment of what he's talking about here in how the people are drawn to us. It is a big deal what is happening in our walk, and it's important that we understand it and do our best to walk it out every day. And I can tell you, I'm not the best at it all the time, but I sure try my best. So let's look at some more prophetic scripture. So Isaiah 2:2-4, since we're in Isaiah already, that'll make it a little easier. And this is talking about how we have been called to Zion and to his Torah. That's what we're talking about in these next two passages of scripture. Isaiah 2:2-4. And it shall be in the latter days that the mountain of the house of Jehovah is established on the top of the mountains and shall be exalted above the hills, and all nations shall flow to it. And many people shall come and say, come, let us go up to the mountain of Jehovah, to the house of the Elohim of Yaakov, and let him teach us his ways, and let us walk in his paths. For out of Zion comes forth the Torah and the word of Jehovah from Jerusalem. And he shall judge between the nations and shall reprove many peoples, and they shall beat their swords into plowshares and their spears into pruning hooks. Nations shall not lift up sword against nation, neither teach battle anymore. So it's talking about basically bringing peace. This return and this understanding of Torah and the desire of the nations to come to Zion is about bringing peace to the world. Did you know you're a peacemaker? You're a peacemaker. Isn't that exciting? He's called us to be his Torah kul, to be peacemakers to the world. I love it. It's so exciting. Okay, Matt, the next scripture we're going to read is Micah 4:1-3. Maybe. Okay. It says, and in the latter days, it shall be that the mountain of the house of Jehovah is established on the top of the mountains and shall be exalted above the hills, and people shall flow to it. And many nations shall come and say, come, let us go up to the mountain of Jehovah, to the house of the Elohim of Yaakov, and let him teach us his ways, and let us walk in his paths. For out of Zion comes forth the Torah and the word of Jehovah from Jerusalem. And he shall judge among the many people and reprove strong nations afar off. They shall beat their swords into plowshares and their spears into pruning hooks. Nations shall not lift up sword against nation, neither teach battle anymore. I'm so excited about that. It makes me so happy. I can't even tell you. So, this is the conclusion that I came to about kind of the whole, well, you know, what do we call ourselves? Have any of you seen the Way documentary? It's really great. If you haven't seen it, I definitely recommend that you watch it. It has a lot of teachers who are pursuing Torah and a lot of just individuals even. It's just really, really good and enlightening. I definitely recommend that you watch that. So that's what we're going to talk about just a little bit. We're going to read Acts chapter 9, verses 1 and 2. We're going to read several things in Acts. If you want to put your finger there, we'll come back to it here in just a minute also. But we're going to read chapter 9, verses 1 and 2 first. But Shaul, still breathing threats and murder against the taught ones of the master, having come to the high priest, asked from him letters to the congregations of Damascus, so that if he found any who were of the way, whether men or women, to bring them bound to Jerusalem. So I remember reading that forever ago, and I was like, oh, that's really interesting. It was called The Way. That's interesting. So, of course, I had to go a little nerdy, Brenda. I had to go back and look. So I went and I looked at the Greek lexicon on this, where it says The Way. And it pointed me back, of course, to derech. And that is a way. It's a walk, a way, a path. So, of course, I wanted to see, well, where is it mentioned first? Because we need to know that. It's important. So look at Genesis chapter 3, verse number 24. It says, and he drove the man out, and he placed cherubim at the east of the Garden of Eden, and a flaming sword which turned every way to guard the way of the tree of life. And I thought, how interesting that he was guarding the way of the tree of life. Now, of course, when you read that, initially your first thought is the path, the road that takes you to the tree of life. Okay, but why can't it be spiritual as well? It can be spiritual as well. The way to the tree of life is being watched over because, we're man and it's what we do. We kind of mess things up and we don't trust the plan and we forget what his plan is for us and we walk outside of it. And then we realize, oh, maybe that wasn't such a good idea. Let me go back. So I just thought it was interesting that was the same word and it tied it to the Septuagint. I thought it was very interesting. Okay, let's go back to Acts. We're going to read chapter 19, verses 9 and 23. Verse 9 says, but when some were hardened and did not believe, speaking evil of the way before the crowd, he withdrew from them and separated the taught ones, reasoning daily in the school of Tyrannos. Again, it's referred to as the way. 23. And about that time, there came to be a great commotion about the way. So they were even stirring up trouble back then. Okay, so this is nothing new. People saying that you're in a cult, all of that kind of stuff, it's not new. There is nothing new under the sun. It's all happened before. So just remember that when you're fighting that battle and in the midst of it and in the face of it, because it can be a challenge. I have fought that challenge in my own family, so I understand. So let's look at Acts chapter 22, verse 4. It says, who persecuted this way to the death, binding and delivering up into prisons both men and women. Are you seeing a pattern? Let's look at chapter 24, verses 14 and 22. Verse 14 says, and this I confess to you, that according to the way, which they call a sect, so I worship the Elohim of my fathers, believing all that has been written in the Torah and in the prophets. Now, if that is not a concise description of what we're doing, I don't know what is. I'm going to read it again. And this I confess to you, that according to the way, which they call a sect. So I worship the Elohim of my fathers, believing all that has been written in the Torah and in the prophets. So basically, it's saying from Genesis to Revelation, this is what I'm doing. I'm following my Elohim because from Genesis to Revelation is the entire book of instruction. That's what Torah means. So let's read one last verse, and it's verse number 22. And having heard this, having known more exactly about the way, Felix put them off, saying, when Lysias, the commander, comes down, I shall decide your case. So how many times were they called Christians in the word? I think it's only referred to one time, and they weren't calling themselves that. They were being called that. It says they were called Christians first at Antioch. And that is not, obviously, we know that's not what we want to call ourselves. But there is, in my opinion, in this book of Acts, a lot of confirmation that even then it was called the way. And so a lot of times when I get asked, I'm like, yes, I follow the word from Genesis to Revelation because it's the way of Yeshua. So it's not always complete and comprehensive. And if they aren't any kind of a follower, they're probably not going to understand that. But if they have any idea what the word is about, then it's going to be a little bit more convincing, I guess is the word that I'm looking for. So that is all the scripture and things that I have for you guys today. What I would like to do now is I'd like to ask everybody to, if you have a question, I'd like you to raise your hand. Let me know that you have a question. I would love to hear from you, and I'm going to do my best to see what I can provide you with in the way of answers. And if I don't have answers, I am not afraid to tell you that I don't know and I need to look into it. So please be patient with me, because I don't want to tell you something just because, you know, I can say it. I don't want to be that person. Okay. So if you have questions, I would love to hear from you. And also I have a list of questions that people have provided to me already. And so a few of those things are going to be the sleep that happens after death. We're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about Tzitzit and the Tzitziot, what that is, what that means. I've had some other questions that are more, I'm going to put them on a back burner for a little bit further down the line. But I have had lots of good questions. So I would hope that if you guys have any questions about what we talked about today, I'd like to hear those. Or if you have comments, I'd like to hear those as well. And if you think of something later, you can always email me. My email address is misty.therootedcafe with a K @gmail.com. And you are welcome to send me an email. I received a really nice email that was really long that I really enjoyed reading and getting to know the person who sent it to me. So I love that as well. Plus I have a written record because I have to write things down. My memory is not the best. So I appreciate all the help that I can get with that situation too. So why don't you guys unmute? If anybody has comments, let's hear them. Let's talk about it. Anybody?
Thank you so much, Misty. This is wonderful. Yeah, come on. We need, I know that you have some questions.
Well,
I'm
I was just
sure.
going to say, you had talked about making the Jewish people jealous. And in interacting with the Jewish people that I've come in contact, when I tell them that I am learning Torah and keeping all of the feasts, when we usually get to the new moons, they don't really celebrate that. And I think that the more that they see us doing these things and doing them with passion and joy, that's what's going to make them jealous. They're going to want to become more observant themselves.
I agree with that. Definitely. How do you say your name? Is it Keely or Kaylee?
Just Kelly.
Kelly. Perfect. Thank you.
Mhm.
I definitely want to respect your name. So I agree with that completely. And that was something that I meant to mention at the beginning of this was I was talking about the sects that are in Judaism. And there's one called the Karaites, which if you've listened to Nehemiah Gordon, that's what he is. That's kind of the walk that he is in. And they are ones who don't do the tradition. They don't do the Talmud. They don't do the Mishnah. They don't do those things. They try to follow strictly the word. And that's a lot of where I come from in what I believe. And so that's why I'm telling you, when you have questions about some of the traditions and things, I'm not going to know the answers, but I'm going to find out. And I love the opportunity to find out. So please don't think that it's offensive to me. I love learning, just plain and simple. So who else has something that they want to share with us? Thank you for that, Kelly. I appreciate it.
Caitlin has her microphone. Oh, she's muted again. Kathy, you're unmuted.
I don't have really any questions on this. We never knew for sure what to call ourselves. So I don't know that the way would be acceptable to where we're at. They still consider us Jewish. So that's okay. Jewish loves Jesus, so.
Right. Well, somebody I heard asked, what do you believe or something like that? And they were like, well, I'm Jew-ish. So I was like, okay, yeah, that's acceptable. Anybody else have something they want to share? There was some stuff going on in the chat that I missed. I missed all of it. So
I just, when it comes to the name, I think that I think for other people, it's not going to matter what we're called, because like Kathy was saying, we're always considered something. And I know when we came out of it, that was the first thing that was asked by someone from our Sunday churches. Well, then what denomination are you, or what do you consider? And I'm like, I don't want to be in a box. Like, don't put me in a box. I don't know. And, you know, I still kind of, there's people who will ask, and sometimes I'll say the thing that will probably be the most relevant to them, or, you know, but it feels like no matter what you say, sometimes you're having to put a disclaimer on it. So if you say Hebrew roots, because some people that I knew from college, he's a pastor, great learned man, you know, from seminary. And then we were meeting with them, and they had passed through our town. So we just were having lunch with them and got to talking about it. And he said, I think I read about this in a magazine. Of course, I'm thinking he's read about this in a Christian magazine that's saying, watch out for these Hebraic roots people, you know, because it really, whether it's Messianic or Hebrew roots or whatever, I don't know, or the way. Steve likes the way. He likes Netzarim. My husband likes Netzarim, or the little branches. He likes, but nobody knows what that means. So you can't really say that. What are you? Well, I'm a Netzarim. Well, what's that? Well, you know, I mean, it opens up discussion, but if you're just in passing conversation, you know, it makes it so difficult. And so sometimes I think that name change, to depending again on the circles of the people I'm talking to, there's people, the most receptive people that I have tend to be people who aren't believers at all, right? Like at work, I work with almost all non-believers. They might believe in God of some sort, but they're not churchgoers, and they certainly aren't living it. I can tell you that. But some of my best conversations are people who are atheist, or even some who even claim to be on the pagan side of things. Like, you know, they're not sure, but they'll talk. But we've had great conversations because they're more open-minded to the things you have to say. And if you're talking to someone who's a very devout, learned Christian, that's where you're going to get your most you know, comeback, I think,
Yeah, the pushback
against
that
your
we get,
beliefs. Yeah, the pushback. Yep.
for sure. Thank you for that, Erica. That's great. I agree with you. I try not to put a name on it if I can help it. But again, I do try to tailor it to whoever I'm talking to. I have a brother who absolutely, he has zero biblical knowledge, but you know, he's like, I love Jesus. He's a good guy, you know. I'm like, oh, well, I could explain it to you 9 ways to Sunday, what I'm talking about. And until you're ready to study it and learn it for yourself, it's not going to make any sense. So it's unfortunate. But how about anybody else?
Questions? All right.
All right.
Misty, I
Yes.
have one for you. When you're in a group of people and they ask you what made you change, how do you respond to that?
Oh, that's a good question.
That is a good question. Well, I had that encounter with my brother where I knew he didn't have any kind of an understanding. But when you're talking about somebody, let's say that it's your Christian friends that you used to hang out with, and they're like, what are you doing? And, you know, I now work with someone that I worked with, well, almost 20 years ago. And she is a Christian, and she hasn't really asked me about it, but I just basically have just tried to be the word in front of her as best I could to specifically give an answer to the question of why did you make that change? I was trying to think if I've ever really been asked that, but I think I would have to say, well, I began to study my word and I came to an understanding that things were not as I was taught. So I dug into it deeper. So that's a short answer, obviously.
And do you have scriptures that you could guide them to?
Well, some of what we talked about today, those prophetic scriptures that are in Isaiah and Micah, because those are definitely indicators of why so many people, we feel very alone because our groups are small and sometimes there's not a fellowship in our area, but it's more widespread than we realize. When I look at things like, you know, I'm a moderator in a singles group that has 700 people in it. And I'm thinking, well, if there's 700 singles out there who are trying to pursue a Torah life, then how many other people are out there that we just don't know? And I don't go by some of the pages that are on Facebook, like some of those people are mean. So I try not to go there. I just try not to go there. And I try to bring balance if something comes across my feed and I'm just like, oh, come on, you can't do it like that. I try to bring some balance if I can. But then usually it just sparks more debate and I have to leave the page. So, but
Gail, did you have something to add to this?
Is
Who,
that because
me?
you saw me shaking my head? Are you asking me because you saw
Yeah.
me doing this? No, seriously, is that why you're asking me?
No, actually, no, because I just felt like you would probably want to jump in because we do have this experience of being drawn into this way of life out of
Yeah.
solid foundational understanding of what we thought, Bible college, ministry, et cetera, and we've been
Yeah.
drawn by the Spirit of God, not by the hand of man. It wasn't that we attended something and got a revelation. It was that the Spirit of God was drawing us. So Carol, I love that. I love your question because in all reality, people are being drawn by the presence and the Spirit of God, drawing them out of, just like the Exodus. Not just drawing them out, but drawing them into. And Gail, I just think that is your that is your experience too. And I was just waiting for you to just jump in and start, and share with us.
Talk. Well, okay. Well, so I love this whole conversation. I love this whole subject, and I think this is a phenomenal first foray into this foundations course. I wonder, what is it about the human condition where we feel like we have to put a label on ourselves?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's
So
our sin nature,
I think,
guys.
it may very well be. It may very well be. We all do it. I would think that we have a really wonderful opportunity to ask the Father, why is label X important to me? Like, why do I want to call myself whatever it is? Why have I changed from this label to this? And ask the Father, what is this label speaking to me, or what do I think it's speaking to me about my identity? And then so I'm pondering all that, right? And then the other thing I'm wondering is, when we do settle on a label, and even saying, oh, I don't label myself. Okay, that's your label. I'm labelless, right? So you're still labeled. The next question I would think might be, when I'm encountering somebody and I want to give them my label, or they're asking me for my label, I would think maybe we can ask, what goal do I have in this encounter with this person? Right? We're going to have an exchange of words. We're going to make a connection here. What's my goal? And I was thinking about that throughout this whole conversation. And then, gosh, I got to thinking about one of the very fundamental things that Dr. Halissa Aylwine teaches us in the Creation Gospel, when she goes through day 1, day 2, 3, whatever. And she talks about how the word says he makes division, right? So he separates for the purpose of coming back together again. And so when we're labeling ourselves, are we labeling to be set apart, to be separate, or are we labeling ourselves in order to make a connection with that person, coming back together again? And so when we look at it that way, it may be that our labels change, like Erica was saying. Well, really, a lot of you all were saying this. Our labels change depending on who we're talking to. If we're talking to someone who identifies as a Christian, for us not to identify that way with them, like, let's find common ground first. Yes, by certain definitions, a Christian is a follower of Christ. So yes, I can say that about myself. So let's have common ground first, and then have you know what I'm saying? Like, have common ground first. We're in this together, and then maybe talk about some of the differences after you've made that kind of connection. So anyway, that's my 2 cents.
I think that's awesome, Gail. Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah.
I do. I think it's awesome. It's a weird kind of a place to be. I was reading some of the comments, it is about partly our identity, how we identify ourselves. It is partly about fitting in and getting to know other people. And it is all of those things. And I think that's part of why we struggle so much, of wanting to have a name, wanting to have something. And it's a difficult place to be, for sure. I do have something. I got this picture. I've had it on my phone for 4 years now. And I don't know if I can show it to you though. Can you see that? Oh, there we go. See it's a t-shirt. This lady's wearing a t-shirt. I'm going to read you what it says. It says, I am a Messiah following, Torah seeking, Sabbath resting, feast keeping, shofar blowing, clean eating, tzitzit wearing, praise dancing, worship singing, Messiah awaiting, blood covered, spirit filled, grafted in, born again, Genesis to Revelation Bible believer. I am Israel. And I was like, yes, I like that. Boom.
That kind of says it all, huh?
Right? Yeah. So
I love that. I think that sometimes I love this conversation because I was being facetious, guys, by the way, and I apologize. Seriously, I need to hit my knees. When I said to Gail, it's because of sin. There is a time when we label people, and labeling people is truly so that we can separate ourselves in a not good way. And I know that that's not what you all are trying to do here, but I think that there's also this beauty of accepting people. Like, how are we accepting people for who they are, and not and learning to not put people in a box. And I think that there's a lot going on here with labeling. So if we can learn to really accept people and just see them as children of the Most High God, wherever their walk is, whatever they're doing, and we're able to grasp a hold of that in approaching them and coming to them, instead of sticking them in a label, sticking them in a box, saying, well, they're, whatever, we're not going to have anything to get along with, or we're not going to be able to get along. I think it's really important that we learn to just kind of let that go, because our filters are filters of experiences. And a lot of times those filters prevent us from seeing the people for who they really are, that the Holy One's bringing to us. And but I understand where Carol's coming from. It's like, well, what do you say to somebody? Why are you being brought here? Why did you change, and now all of a sudden you're doing this instead of doing that? And like I was saying to Gail, the best way that I can say it is, Carol, it's by the Spirit of the Holy One that He is drawing us out of and into something. And what that is glorious. And we really can't even can we put a label on it? I mean, we can't, but we can't, but we can, but we can't.
it's so true.
It's so much bigger than being able to. It's kind of like when Paul was talking about being all things to all men, he was really grasping. He was saying, look, if I'm talking to a Gentile, like Gail said, if I'm talking to a Gentile, I'm going to be talking to them this way. I'm not going to be expecting them to understand my lingo from something that they don't understand. I'm going to be approaching them from where they are, common ground. But if I'm talking to someone else, I'm going to be approaching them from the common ground of what we have. And I think it's really beautiful. And wouldn't that be great if we could grasp that, something to look forward to.
Well, as you were talking about that labeling things, and I think of, I know people who label other people, and it's not beneficial. It's not uplifting. It's not exhorting. It's none of those things. And we definitely don't want to do that. We don't want to be separatist, if I could borrow that term. We don't want to be separatist. We want to be those encouragers and lovers and exhorters and all of those things. And sometimes putting that label is a big dividing line. It really is.
Mm-hmm. It's really
so
good.
Ladies, I'm just going to give you one more opportunity. We're almost out of time, and I'd like to pray before we leave. So I just want to give one more opportunity to see if anyone else has any comments or questions that they would like to bring up.
I do. This is Monica. I have a comment. I want to go back to, I forget the lady's name, and I do apologize, where she was saying, what do you say to people who ask you, why have you changed? Or what do you call yourself? So I have that experience because, and I just tell my testimony, I often think of the scripture We know in part and we prophesy in part. And I was saying up to a certain point in my journey, I knew a part. And when God saw fit, when Yah saw fit that I was mature enough to receive more and he can reveal more of an understanding of his word, he opened my eyes and removed those scales. And the first thing he showed me was Shabbat. I immediately began to question, where did the Saturday, Sunday change come from? And even though I didn't know, because I had that conviction, I began to observe the Shabbat. And I found that because of that, it caused me to dig deeper. And we were talking about identity, and a lot of it has to do with identity, because if you think in the Sunday church, a label is placed on you based on whatever church you attend, whatever you feel your denomination is, and which is just not biblical anyways, but I don't want to go down that path. And the other thing I found, that I have a friend who actually, the scales are being removed from her eyes simply because I said to her, I need you to read Ephesians 2. I need you to read Jeremiah 31 and also Romans 11, and ask yourself, what does all of that mean? Where did it come? Where did it come? I also asked her, how did we begin to call ourselves Christian? Because like you said, we never called ourselves that. We were called that. And because she has an understanding that now we're part of the Commonwealth of Israel, she's reading the Old Testament. She's reading the Old Testament more. So to answer that question, when people say, what have you done to change? I haven't changed. The scales were removed. So I haven't changed. I'm still learning his word, and I'm still walking in his word. And just like next month, I plan to learn more. And it seems like as I'm growing in this walk, I find places like the Rooted Cafe. I almost fell out of my chair when I stumbled upon this site, because it's like I've been praying and praying. I don't have fellowship around me, right? And so I wanted a place where I can learn, where I can fellowship, where I'm getting truth. And I wanted it to be women, because yes, there are websites out there, it's mostly men, but there are things women go through that I think we should share with one another. So when I found this, it wasn't much searching. I just immediately signed up.
Yeah.
And that's what it is. It's part of that journey where he continues to remove the scale. So you didn't change, you're just embracing more of his word.
Ooh, I like that.
Yeah.
That's very good.
Oh, I love that.
Debbie,
And
did you have something you wanted to share? Sorry, Carol.
that's okay.
Yes. And I love that, embracing more of his word. That's so good. Can you hear me okay?
Mhm.
Okay. All right. Well, the last 2 times that I have attended church in the Baptist church, which I came from, where I was rooted, and I too was convicted about Shabbat through studying God's word. But the last 2 times that I have been to church, today just being one that I listened to from my home church in Paris, the pastor brought up the lady that had the issue of blood and who reached out to touch the hem of Yeshua's garment. And you know what he said? He didn't say garment. He said she reached out to touch the shawl, and she reached for his talit and pulled on that. And then he described it. And I thought, oh my goodness, the Baptists are starting to get it. Or bring more in, to the teaching. And the time before that too, in another situation, there was something similar to teach about the Jewish traditions, and I don't know that I'm saying everything quite right, but anyway, just learning from clean to unclean, and to take better care of our bodies, and to respect who he is just so fulfilling and so good. And I love this group. And that's all I got to say.
Thank you for sharing, Debbie. That's wonderful. I love it. I love it. Carol, were you going to add something
Yes,
since
yes.
Monica responded to you?
Monica, the only reason I asked that question was so that people were asking questions. I go to Misty's congregation, so I'm with her. I can tell you that my experience was a little bit different because when they made that change, I was very resistant to it. And Misty is the one who told me to go to teshuva.com and watch that. And I did. But Yehovah was also very active in my learning as well. And I was not brought up per se in the church by my parents. I would go with my aunt and uncle. And when we were stationed someplace else, I would find whatever church was closest to my home and I would walk to church. And it didn't matter if it was a Baptist. About the only thing I didn't go to is Catholic. Don't ask me why, or Mormon or Seventh-day Adventist. It was your Presbyterian churches, your Methodist churches, your Lutheran churches. Anyways, when we started making this change, I had always believed that the entire Bible was relevant from the beginning to the end. That's something that I've just always believed. Never understood why, but I believed it. And I could never understand why the church only taught out of the New Testament. But then I started seeing, my daughter, my youngest one, told me I was in a cult. And almost immediately, I sell insurance for a living. And I went into this woman's home and she very proudly told me she was a paganist. And I sat there squirming, wanting very desperately to get out of her house. But Yehovah put me there for a reason, because she explained to me what the holidays represented and what they meant. And I had just read the passage in Jeremiah that I believe speaks about Christmas. So I already knew the direction that I was going in with those holidays and things. And I've been doing this for as long as Misty has, still learning his set apart days and his holidays. So, like I said, I asked that question just so that people were asking and to hopefully bring about more talking, more sharing, midrash, if you will, because I think it's important for us to share those kinds of things because that's how we learn. But it's also, you may not agree with my opinion, I may not agree with yours, but it's learning not to allow those differences to separate us, to cause strife, to continue loving each other and being respectful of different opinions.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I agree with that. Allie, you have your hand up.
Hey y'all. No video today, sorry. I'm laying in the bed, so forgive me. Hey Brenda. I was just gonna share, I love all these stories. I was kind of listening today, but I actually went to a church that has a messianic ministry, pretty substantial messianic ministry actually, and they do a monthly Shabbat service. And so I got invited and I'm like, at first I was like, this is weird, but I just went. My mom literally told me they have free food and that's why I went. And they were having a DJ. I'm just being honest. That's why I went. And so I was like, cool, I'm bored. I don't have anything to do. I'll go on a Friday night. And so I walk in the door and she's like, you say Shabbat Shalom. And I'm like, yeah, no, ain't happening. That's weird. I don't like, it was just new to me. I didn't understand anything. And so I decided that I was going to learn what up was in Hebrew. And I was going to say what up to people instead. I was like clueless. It's really funny looking back. But it was cool because the church I went to is non-denominational. It's huge. I think there's like 40 or 50,000 members. And they taught primarily out of the Old Testament. And I didn't realize what he was doing. Just going there, I thought, well, this is really cool. We're learning. It's really so much exegesis is what he was teaching, is how to exegete yourself from the Bible, not just how to listen to your pastor, but how did the pastor would equip you? How do you extract from the Bible yourself? And so I was like, this is just cool. And my nerdy side was like all over it. And then I started going the Messianic, and I fell in love with it, not just for the free food or the DJ, and which was awesome. But then the weirdest thing happened. I started having dreams in Hebrew, and it was so cool because I fell into this path on accident. I just literally went for free food, and it was
Accident?
like he took hold of me in a whole different way. And then I started having dreams I don't understand, but they were just powerful. And I look back and I'm like, I don't even know who I am anymore. And I don't even want to label, because I don't want to be like anyone else. I just want to be on this path and literally go wherever it takes me, because that's been the last couple of years. And it's been so fun. Because I do geek out in the word. Like, it's my favorite place. And I lay in the bed a lot. Don't judge. I have an illness, and spend a lot of time with Jesus and with the Holy Spirit, and just talking to him back and forth. And I can tell y'all, I'm a rebel anyway. If you know me, you know I'm a rebel. And I just love feeling like I am a spiritual rebel right now. Like, I don't have a home in a home church. I kind of like it. I feel like a church orphan, but it's great. I found you guys. I found a new relationship. The Bible feels like a whole new book to me. It's just been the most incredible journey. And that's what, when somebody asks me what I'm doing, I just wanted to tell y'all, that's what I tell them. I don't know what I'm doing, but it is so cool because I don't have to know. And I just get up every day and I'm like, what are we doing today, Lord? Like, let's do this. And, and I have completely new beliefs about everything. And it's really that working out your own salvation. It's so incredible. And anyway, I love you guys, and I love this group, and I love this call.
We love you too. We're glad you're here.
There's my rambling 2 cents for the day. And snow sucks, by the way. Just want y'all to know that.
Okay, that's good. That's good.
It's so cold here, y'all.
There are no
-1.
There are no coincidences in the kingdom. They're God incidents. There is no coincidence. So you were definitely chosen and plucked out.
Well, I love it here. So the Lord can keep me wherever he wants me for as long as however he wants me there, because I'm just having a great time.
I love that. That's awesome. We love having you too. Ladies, if nobody else really has anything, if you raise your hand, I'll stop for a second. But I'd like to pray and get us headed out of here. I want to be respectful of your time on this Sunday afternoon, the first day of the week. I appreciate everybody's participation in being here today. And I don't know what our topic is going to be next time. I haven't really decided, because my topic was one thing and then I talked to Charlie and I changed it. So I'm not committing. I'm just saying, not committing. It could change. So anyway, I'm going to pray us out if you guys are good with that. All right, Father, you are so good to us, and I'm so thankful for this gathering and this fellowship of ladies who desire to go deeper with you, who want to know you more. I am thankful that I have the opportunity to dive in with them, and I thank you for your presence. I thank you for your guidance. I thank you for your wisdom. You are just so good to us, and I cannot thank you enough. I just ask that you would bless each woman as they go about the business of the first day of the week and all the things that they have and their responsibilities and duties as moms and wives and friends. Father, I just ask for your blessings. And I thank you for this time, Father, in the name of Yeshua. Amen.